twirling tool, we begin to play. Forwards, backs, spin into a winger, a scissors, a dummy, and a proud old singer. Swansea, Swansea.
Hi, this is Artful Engineer episode 6. Today we have Mark Williams. This is the first time actually we have a CEO who is also a rock band member. And this is a very cool episode, so I hope you will stick with us. Hi, Mark. How are you today?
Hi, I'm well, thank you. I'm well. We're sweltering in a heat wave here in the UK, so it's pretty warm. But apart from that, all good. Thank you.
You are a CEO at Pulsic, right? You have this logo on your shirt, and
I do.
Tell us what Pulsic do.
Sure. We are an EDA company. For those that don't know, electronic design automation. And what that means is we try and bring software solutions to automate the task of designing integrated circuits, memories and processors and things like that. And the EDA printed circuit boards as well. It includes that. We try and focus on an area called the custom design market sector of that. So again, memories and analog devices and things like that. And we try to bring pioneering automation solutions to that space, things that people do by hand because the quality of results really matter. So we try and bring automation to that space.
You ain't going nowhere, riding in your rut. You've always been a yes man, so get off your butt and strut.
I have to ask you this. Do your employees and customers know that you are actually a rocker?
Some customers do it. Yes, they do indeed. Not all. And indeed, some co-workers, certainly my founder members, know as well, but not everybody. It's quite nice to keep them separate, to be honest. Being an EDA company executive or CEO, in my case, and rocking out at the weekend is something completely opposite. And I try to keep it that way.
What's the name of your current band and what kind of music do you play?
So the band I'm in now is all about fun, really. So it's called Final Demand, and at our stage, we're all into our 50s, well into our 50s, I should say. So we're a covers band. We do everything for fun, but we play some great shows. We've played the Cavern Club in Liverpool and quite far afield. But we're based predominantly in South Wales. We do all sorts of things that we do. Hits from way back. I wouldn't say hits. Some of them are not hits. Some of them are sort of cult tracks, I guess you'd call them, from the 50s, 60s, but right through to modern day stuff now as well.
Well, last time you and I chatted, you actually mentioned your 15 minutes of fame when you were only 18 years old, and you were the member of the band called Ranka Chanka. Tell me about that story.
Yeah, certainly. So Ranka Chanka was a band that came out of school when we were in our sixth form, so late school. And we were fortunate enough to be entered into a BBC competition here in the UK called Battle of the Bands, which we were very successful at. So we ended up getting slots on BBC Primetime TV, Radio 1, BBC Radio 1 as well. What was more interesting, I think, we're a guitar-based band, and in the 80s, this is 1982. Guitar-based bands weren't in. They were 10 years later, of course. They came back evolved. At the time we were at, it was all synthesizer music and things like that. And indeed, other bands in the competition were a lot of them were synthesizer-based bands. But we won it, so it was a fantastic time. Then, of course, we had a decision point to make: do we carry on with this, or do we do the sensible thing and go to university and focus on careers and things? So we kind of did the latter, unfortunately.
Here we go with the heave and the hoe, cause nobody messes with our back row. Big pack, fast packs. Look at everybody, it's a jack attack. Big pack, fast packs.
So I actually happened to watch the Ranka Chanka reunion video on YouTube. There are 3 characters in that band. Are these the original members? All right.
Yes, they are. Yes, yes.
So what did they become? I mean, you obviously became the CEO of Pulsic. What are the two other gentlemen,
Right. Okay. So
are today?
yep, certainly. So Simon, who on the screen is the one on the right hand side, the other singer. We both sing in the band. He is CEO, I guess, of University College. They're called principals, but effectively he's the CEO of a university college down in Wales. So he's done very well for himself. And Richard, and this is kind of how the reunion came about. The drummer, he moved to Australia some years ago, and he's in engineering now over there. So when the pandemic hit in 2020, of course, Final Demand stopped for everything stopped. I was talking to the guys on the phone. I said, wouldn't it be great if we did something using the technology we have now, Zoom and everything else, to try and do a reunion video, one of our own songs, and that's how that came about. So Richard's in Australia, Simon's down in Wales, both done quite well for themselves. So yeah, it was great.
Can you explain your background? How did you develop your love for music?
Well, as I say, music was in the family, but music is very big, a big thing in Wales. Certainly was back then, and relatively it still is today, I would say. And when I was small, every house, ours and my aunts and uncles' houses and everything, every house that we went to visit, everyone had a piano in the house. Of course, we didn't have today's distractions as kids either, right? You know, there were no computers or games of any sort. Board games, it was the best you could do. And sort of, you know, in the summers on bad weather days, you end up tinkering with the piano. And again, if there were musicians in the family as well, and there often were in Wales. And like most children of my era, and I still think it's true now, we sort of started on the recorder. But I became a wizard on the recorder, you know, playing two of them at once, sort of in harmony. And it really developed from there. So piano, you learn about a bit of background of the music, and again, everyone had piano in the houses. So you go to other people's houses, you play what you know, they play what they know, and you play together. And it kind of grew from that, really.
Also, I learned when we talked last time that you actually had this, you know, musical evolution, I would call it, because you played at the Welsh Youth Orchestra, and then you turned into Welsh Jazz Band, and then all the way to Ranka Chanka.
That's right. When I was very young, I played recorder. So it was a natural transition for me, because I was very interested in the musical side, was to move to clarinet. So that was my first proper instrument, I suppose. So I did my musical grades in the clarinet, and I was part of the Welsh Youth Orchestra, as you say. But then as you get older, of course, you know, you get more interested in cooler, perhaps, dare I say, instruments. So a natural transition for me from there was to go to saxophone. So I moved to the saxophone, then I moved from the youth orchestra into the youth jazz band, and that was certainly cooler for a while. And then, of course, rock and roll is calling as you get older. I mean, I could, and in fact, when I started thinking about bands, I did look at playing the saxophone in a band. The problem with that is you can't really sing and be a sax player. So I moved on to the guitars and bass and other things there that I could sing as well.
So tell me about your favorite music composers.
Queen, performance-wise, I think were fantastic. Freddie Mercury got to be one of the best ever. Favorite composers and favorite bands of all time. It's again, person of my age now, it's hard to look past what the Beatles did. Not just of how successful they were, and you know, of course they were the biggest and greatest of all time. But it's the evolution they took. I think if you look at their very early stuff, how simple yet good it was, and how complex it became. You know, they really learnt and grew, and the evolution of the band was fantastic. So it's hard to look beyond Lennon and McCartney for composers, really, and the Beatles generally. I mean, phenomenal.
I'm going to go back to your professional life now as an engineer, and you know, you sort of explained what you do in EDA, what kind of EDA business you're in. But could you tell our audience what interested you to move into the EDA business? Because because this is a very specific market.
Yes, indeed. I'd say my background is mathematics. I didn't do electronic engineering at school, and I certainly didn't do it at university. But as when I was in university doing maths, of course, we were doing computer science and programming as well. It goes hand in hand. And the CAD area really interested me. Some of the algorithms you apply, the mathematical algorithms you apply to the CAD space. That was certainly interesting. And then the opportunity came up for me to join after university an EDA company, a PCB EDA company called Rayco Redac, which is in Gloucestershire, which is where I still live today. That's what brought me up to this area. My first job after university, and that really fueled my appetite because there are automating a manual task is satisfying anyway, right? But some manual tasks, anyone can see how, okay, you can automate that. But the complexities involved with automating a chip layout, the devices, the transistors, the metallization layers, automating all of that with all of the rules and constraints for whatever technology you're designing on, it's baffling thinking about it. And the fact that we have to come up with algorithms, a whole suite of algorithms to tackle that problem, really was it's a massive mathematical join the dots puzzle, I suppose, with all the rules and constraints thrown into it as well. And that's really what fascinates me. It's the algorithmic mathematical side of things.
Is it a little bit of a stretch to ask you to, if there's any connections or any dots that you can connect between the complexity of algorithm you just described required for EDA tool development versus music?
In fact, there's a great book that's out there called The Music of the Primes by Marcus du Sauter, I think it's the author. And it talks about the relationship between mathematics and music. Music really is notes of the scale are the numbers. And 1 to 8 is your scale, and there are relationships between certain numbers of that scale, and there's definitely a correlation that takes place between mathematics and music. And as I said in that book, it talks about Bayesian and Gaussian theories and how that relates to the musical scales. So definitely. I wouldn't say there's a relationship between music and being a CEO. Maybe I'm kind of the band organizer, so maybe there's a bit of a management level going on there. But don't tell the other band members that. But music and mathematics, there's definitely a relationship, I think, between the two.
What do you expect? What kind of gig are you actually planning to play?
Well, if you'd asked me 6 weeks, 2 months ago, I would have said just the opportunity to play again would be fantastic. We did our last gig actually in March of 2020, just as this was unfolding, early March, and we haven't played since. But we now have dates in the diary for September, October, through to Christmas. So that's fantastic. Now whether they, lots can change. It's an evolving situation, of course. We have to see how things progress, but the dates are in the diary, so fingers crossed we could actually get some performing in.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you so much for coming to the show. This was a lot of fun, and I hope that you can actually play live, but also you said music and CEO business are separate, but I think people would be interested in knowing this music side of you. It's fantastic.
Okay, I hope so. Many thanks for your time.